So today in this video, we're going to be working in a small studio space. I'll show you the dimensions in a minute. And we're going to be working with two lights because those two lights will give us a really good foundation and understanding of what we can do in the studio and how we can work with soft light. The basis will stay the same as always. The camera will be in a fixed position. The camera settings will be the same, but we're going to make changes to our light, power or movement, where they are, positioning, and modifiers. These are just some of the variants that we'll see. I think it's like 6 main setups that we're doing. And I'll talk you through with the side-by-side images as normal. Okay, so we've got the studio space here. It's a fairly basic studio, so something that you could do at home or a small rental studio. And here are our camera settings and our studio dimensions. So it's like a 6 meter by 6 meters, 5 meter height. We're not going to use the whole height of the studio. We're not bouncing the light off the ceiling or anything. This would also work in a studio that doesn't have that same height to it. And then we've got a camera settings. So I'm on a 100mm prime lens. You could do the same thing like 85mm, 50mm, just depending on your positioning. This session is more focused on like a portrait crop, shutter speed of 125, ISO 100, aperture f11. I like always keep it f11 in the studio unless I've got a real reason to move away from that. Studio space, we've got our model in position, we've got our camera in position, it's going to be fixed, and then we've got these black polyboards or negative fill either side of the model, V-shape, fairly classic. And the important thing to note in this first setup, lights and the modifiers are the same height, same position, and they're on the same power, so everything is equal. They're the same distance from the model as well. It's kind of like a big umbrella with a sock on the front. You could get a similar kind of result with the Octa, and we're shooting just a little bit below head height. What do we see from that first setup? So on the left-hand side is the non-cropped image, and then I've just cropped into the image on the right so that we can get real focus on what's happening with catch lights, skin tone. I've also exported the file into Photoshop and put a basic curve on it. It's the same curve in all the images though, so you'll see that it's consistent. So first things to notice, we've got these two even catch lights and eyes. We've got a nice highlight on the bottom lip, that's working well. The highlight that's sitting on the top lip is also good. A little flat, quite bright on the forehead because we've got these two light sources, same height, positioned straight forward towards the model. The black negative fill on either side, that is helping shape the face, putting contrast on the edge of the body, jawline, and so on. Overall, it's quite a soft light. The fall off is quite nice across the face. And we're getting good light into the eyes and eye socket. We're not getting a heavy shadow or anything like that. We've also got even light onto the background, so the background is consistent tone and color all the way across the image. But let's see if we can shape the light a little bit more. So we're going to bring one of those lights up high now. It's still on power 6, and we're angling it down. And then we've got the second light, we're keeping in exactly the same position, and we're keeping that on power 6. Everything else stays the same. You can immediately see in a preview image on the left where the catch lights have changed. You've got one up high, one down low in the eyes. Just spin around so we can see what that looks like in the actual studio. Let's see the full shot and the detail. So the first thing we noticed, slight separation now with the catch lights and eyes. It doesn't look so fake as it did on the first image where the catch lights are right next to each other. That really bright area on the forehead has changed a little bit now. So we've kind of, by moving that light up, we've separated those two lights a bit so we're not getting that kind of flat area of the forehead that was a little bit too bright, shaping the face a little bit more. And let's see if we compare that with the first setup side by side. On the left is the first image, on the right is the second image. So the changes are quite subtle, but they are noticeable. The forehead has a bit more of a shape to it now. It looks very flat on the left, but on the right it's more sculpted. It looks more like an image that's 3D. So when you're photographing a real person, they'll have some more depth. Also, on the same thing on the chin, where those two lights are side by side in the first setup, you're just seeing like one block of area of light on the chin. And again with the nose highlight, it's like a flat line on the first one, but by staggering the lights, we've got something that's a little bit more believable, a little bit more realistic. And on the full image, it's immediately noticeable. The image on the right to me looks a lot better. It's got that more 3D sculpted feel. It looks much better, is a little bit more defined. And also on the neckline, it doesn't look as flat. The background is staying same because we still got the same amount of power of light that's hitting the backdrop. So now that we know moving that light up is giving us a more sculpted feel, well, we could also change the power. So we had 6 and 6 before, let's put 7 in the top light, and let's bring the other light down on the bottom to 4. And what we're trying to do there is make one light a little bit more dominant, and again, get more of a sculpted feel to the face. And let's review that. The difference between the catch lights now is a little bit better. Having that lower light also is a lower power. It's beginning to shape and sculpt the face a little bit more. The right-hand side of the face is maybe falling off into shadow a little bit too much. Rather than 7 and 4, we would have like 6 and 4.5 maybe on the power. But again, it's giving us more of a 3D sculpted feel. And then we got the side by sides. So on the left is the power where they're both the same. And on the right is the staggered power where the top light is more dominant. And again, this will be about preference. Like, what do you prefer with that? Do you maybe want to be somewhere in the middle? There's a slight change with the background. It's a little bit more washed out the top left from that top light and it's hitting the backdrop. The spread of light on the lips is a lot better, I think. And we're bringing more of a top lip highlight. And we can really see there when we zoom in, the lips have a better shape and form to them. And you can also really see what I mean here about the depth of the eye socket when the top light is more dominant. But you can also see on the bottom on the right hand image where it's falling off into shadow, it is quite heavy. Okay, so what happens if we flip those negative fills and turn them into white polyboards? Bottom light is still on 4 and the top light is still on 7. So we're going to get some bounce light from them. And that should solve some of those problems with the heaviness under the eye socket or the heaviness under the jawline. On the left-hand side, the previous image, on the right-hand side is the current image with the white polyboard. And it's immediately obvious. You see it a little bit more of the neck, even in this one. And it's also filling in, like I said, the eye socket shadow a little bit with that white polyboard. It's not so dark and defined. And there's also a little bit more light maybe spilling onto the background. And we really notice it in the cropped in shot. So the image on the right, white polyboard, left black negative fill. And it's really about what it's doing in that chin area, the roll neck of the sweater, and then the eye socket. And also how it's defining the cheekbone less or more depending whether you have negative fill or the white bounce. So now let's change our position of our light. We're going to bring in this light as a top light. We've got it on power 6, and then we've got this front light on power 6. The reason I put it up here, we want to change the direction of that top light. We know that bringing the light up from above and dropping it down across the face is sculpting. So what's it like when we really pull it across and it's almost like a drop down light? Let's just zoom around so we can see that it is. So it's kind of pretty much above the model's head. So the light will fall off across the face and the shoulder, and it's off to one side because we want to keep that sculpted feel. There's a lot more light in the hair now, that's more defined. Forehead highlight has moved up to the top. We're not putting this big like flat light here. But what's noticeable also is how the light sits across the nose. We're also sitting a highlight right on the top lip now that's coming from that top light. And there's a subtle difference in the way the highlight on the chin is, so on the right hand side now is the top down light. And you can see that chin highlight is slightly moved to one side. And we're just defining the shape of the face a little bit more. The other thing that's really great is that now we've just got one catch light because that top light is positioned away from eye, so we're not seeing it. Again, that will be a preference whether you like the catch lights or not. And also in the hair at the bottom, we're pushing a little bit more light into there. So again, we've got this more like sculpted 3D feel. But again, the lips look more defined. We're wrapping light around the face. In the bottom lip, you can see that the light is kind of pushing across. Highlight across the nose has really changed with that top down light, which again, if you've got like a makeup contour or something, that's going to work well with that. So now we're going to do a front light. We're going to bring it down in power. So we're going to put it on 4, top light is on 6, still got the white polyboards bounce, but we're just trying to define shape. In the preview image, we notice actually if we're dropping that front light down at 4 and we're dropping the top light down at 6, we've got a much darker image, darker background also. The areas that are catching the light seem to come forward more. It seems more contrasty. Overall, the light has been reduced. The highlights seem more obvious. So the highlight in the nose is the lip line highlights. Haven't changed the camera settings. It's just coming from the change of light. And now side by side, we can really see the difference. They say, okay, the image on the right is too dark now. I want something in between. But just to show you the range that you can get and how you can work with those changes of power, we've got that fairly kind of dense shadow back into the eye sockets. The forehead is shaped quite nicely now on the right hand side. Lip highlight comes forward more on the image that's more contrasty on the right. Let's just really look at that change of the background. We've got this like deep, rich kind of cherry red on the right hand side, whereas it was more of a kind of washed out pinky feel on the left. Let's go to the cropped in image. Really different feel. We've got something that is more intense, a little bit more contrasty. And those highlights are in areas we want them to be, like the bridge of the nose or the lips. The fall off onto shadow is very intense, so it's very dark in that neckline. So we're going to do one last thing. We're changing the modify now. We're going to put a strip softbox over the top and see if we can define that highlight a little bit more and control that light so we're not throwing light back into the image. Still keep the white polyboards, and we've got 4 from the front still with that bottom light, and then we've got 7 from the strip softbox. It's not going to spread as much, so I'm going to put a little bit more power back into this light. And you can see with angle, it's slightly in front of the model and it's like a cross light. And again, in the preview image, the nose highlights really changed. The highlight on the forehead has changed quite a lot. And the other thing to really notice with this, how the background has changed. We had that big light source before and the background was quite a deep, rich color, but now it's a really dark color. The light around the eyes has changed really significantly. Tonally, everything is sitting in a different register than it was before. The highlight on the lip has changed, and the highlight on the nose is really about shape now. I think the thing with strip softbox is it really becomes about positioning, like where the model is turning their head or where you position the light to. Strip softboxes can be good, but they can also feel quite restrictive because like it can look perfect 1 second and then someone moves too far and then it just looks awful. And let's compare them side by side. So the big modifier is on the left, the strip softbox is on the right. Tonally, everything has changed, background has changed. Really noticeable when you crop in. And now we're going to bring that strip softbox forward, and I'm also angling that front light down into the ground more. I've dialed in 7 in terms of power on the top strip softbox, and the front softbox is on 4 still, but it's pointing into the ground, it's bouncing back up a little. And we're kind of pushing forward with that strip softbox. And this is where you can see really tiny adjustments with a strip softbox make a huge difference. Strip softbox has really defined the nose shape. It's also sitting on the bottom lip nicely and putting a strong highlight on the top lip. We're kind of dropping the eyes away almost into shadow, but by bouncing that light into the floor, we're getting a different catch light into the eyes. So they're kind of almost glowing a little bit. We're getting a bit of bounce light going into there. So really subtle change. But the difference in the picture is quite dramatic. It's more defining shape, a little bit more defined on the lip, a little bit more light on the chin. Overall, that exposure is picked up a little bit also because we're just hitting the front of the face a bit more. So with the cropped image, you really see that difference in the catch lights and that little kind of lift that we're getting from the floor. The way that that strip softbox highlight hits the front of the nose, it looks really nice to me. You may disagree, but it's defining the shape of the nose quite nicely. And it's just really minor adjustments that can work really well with a strip softbox. I'm just going to show you all the images now, side by side, but the image on the left is the kind of the raw image that came out of the software, and then the image on the right is one that I've put a curve on. We'll just flick through all the images that we shot today, and you can really see the difference of how we've managed to manipulate the light, change the shape of the face, define the shape of the face, whether we've got bounce boards or black negative fill. We've controlled the background. We've got something that's quite moody. And then we've really defined that mood also by bringing that strip softbox forward. So hopefully that was useful. Pretty good exercise to work through with two lights. If you've got a little bit of space, you only need 5 or 6 meter studio, and just work through how different light placements really shape the face and bring different mood and feel to the backdrop, different mood and feel to the subject. If you've got comments, that also really helps me if you add comments, but also I can see what people are struggling with or what works for people, and then hopefully I'll try and answer those comments as well. And thanks for watching.